If you caught our episodes from the south of Italy, I was talking about a lot of sites that now we've been wanting to see for 6, 7 plus years. And amongst these, there's a huge green stripe of to-do pins all along the north of Spain. This is a huge variety of sites from the hill forts of Galicia and into Asturias, ancient churches that survived the Islamic invasion and rule, some dolmens, a lot of Roman ruins and Romanesque. It's all there. But while you can catch up our Spain playlist, we've made a modest start in Andalusia, got up to Merida, we've seen the historic cities around Madrid and the Balearic Islands as well, all good stuff, but the north, conspicuously untouched. Now, there are so many pins, and this is a pretty mountainous landscape. It's not the fastest to get around, so it was going to take a whole series of trips to hit all of this, meaning you could pretty much slice it any which way. Now, I had a group of friends that I was pitching this to, and my initial goal was to hit Asturias, ideally as far as Oviedo, but then some flights came up, meaning we could do the whole thing for under 50 quid. That's there and back, all in. And while that was now going to leave a smaller time window, that was too much of a steal to pass up. So, title drop. We are Forest Archaic Collective, and as well as making Jungle Drum and Bass, we've followed ancient sites across Europe and beyond, whether it's Neolithic standing stones, Roman arches, or Romanesque churches. We are proudly and resolutely AI-free. We've always believed that if we're going to share these stories about ancient places, we need to go and film them for ourselves, not just spam a stock library, definitely not get the data centers to slop out some half-plausible looking garbage, like these Roman emperors that look like they've been hosed down with crude oil. So we're actually going to see these things for ourselves to show you. So please support us in doing that. More on how at the end of the video and in the description. By the way, we've got another round of the game at the end of the episode, so stick around for that. Okay, so early flight out of a quite cloudy Luton, not usually my airport of choice, but we zipped through, sun just beginning to peek through. Enjoyed the luxurious carpet of cloud as we climbed. When Spain came into view, also pretty cloudy, and yes, much greener than you'd usually picture. This is right in the last few days of April. Landing in Reus, it was a bit of a surprise to see rain, which hadn't showed up on any of the forecasts I'd seen, but, uneventful transit through the airport. Sorting out the hire car took a while, during which I wasn't filming, so we finally got on our way, but before getting too far out of the area, just quick explainer, the town of Reus, I'm just going to say it, not especially remarkable, arguably not somewhere that really requires the use of an international airport, but the airport is almost equidistant between the centre of Reus and the much more interesting Tarragona, which we'd be back to at the end, but wanted to give my friends something impressive to kick off the trip. And I guess I don't mind seeing it either. This is the Pont del Diable, or the Ferreras Aqueduct, if we're being mildly less hysterical. I don't understand the brand of Christianity that looks at something this beautiful and majestic and instantly concludes, aha, yes, the devil has been here, unmistakable. So, a bit of sun poking through, I was being giddy like a schoolgirl. There are only a finite number of aqueduct spans that survive both this height and condition. Not the longest distance way to the south, the Segovia Aqueduct is up there. It's really up there. The ruins of the Merida Aqueduct are very hard to beat in terms of height and prettiness. At the time of writing, perhaps the most famous, the Pont du Gard, remains on the to-do list for us. But this, just a short way outside of Tarragona, is pretty high up on the tier list, and it's surrounded by some lovely woodland too. Despite all the space, it was pretty busy with cyclists and groups walking in the afternoon. Well, back on the road, it is striking just how much heavy industry was around Tarragona, which is not what I pictured when you think about the Catalonia coast. I've been trying somewhat unsuccessfully to catch this spout here, spitting out fire like full Blade Runner style. Quick petrol stop. Despite it only being past 1 o'clock on day one, there was a site that we had to drop off the list because of time constraints. I'll unpack that later. But as we continued, the landscape was not really what you'd expect. Depending on which title, thumbnail combo I end up using for this episode, yeah, it might seem a little dumb to be like, what? There's greenery in Spain? Of course, a lot of us Brits, we tend to be there more in the summer months when it's a bit more of a scorched brown across a lot of the country. But as I think you're going to see, North Spain was this incredible surprise because it's just not the sort of landscapes that we generally associate with Spain. And as I said up top, I've mostly so far caught the south and the middle. So it was very exciting to be catching something a little bit different. Visually, while the terrain was very interesting, shown out of context, you might not pick Spain out of the hat as your first guess. As we got further north, the blue skies were more prominent, but the wind had also picked up aggressively. And this sure is wind turbine country. The countryside was filled with them for most of the area we covered over the weekend. Our next target needs a little explanation. To really sell this trip, part of my pitch to the group was, okay, we're hitting northern Spain, and sure, we've got various ancient and medieval sites queued up, but couldn't resist this a bit of a sweetener. We get to go into the desert. Now, if this sounds like a bit of a misnomer, especially since I've already been saying how green the landscape had turned out, I had later read that the area we're going to generally blooms in spring, so would likely not be, like rolling sand dunes, the desert cliches, but still, the landscape started getting a lot more exciting as we drove into the Bardenas Real. The meadows at the edge and the flocks of sheep confirmed that the Sahara this most certainly was not. We briefly stopped off to take in the views, by which time not only had the wind once again picked up, but some angry clouds were starting to spit rain at us. Not quite the desert fun times I'd hoped for, but persisting. I was a little concerned that we might be doing the Bardenas Real wrong. Yeah, it is a national park. Some of it is a military area. You know that unique way Google has of pointing you to a goat path and being all like, yeah, of course you can drive on that. In fact, I'm going to give this equal weight on the timing to a 6-lane highway. However, happily, the place we're heading is pretty popular, and if you're in any doubt, there was this sort of snaking line of RVs and other vehicles heading there. And even better luck, as we stepped out at the modest car park, the rain decided to give it a rest. And this is undoubtedly the icon of the Bardenas Real, known as the Castel de Tierra, and, well, it's not every day. So the desert label was not the most useful. I soon realised the more helpful comparison might be something like a prairie. I've never visited one of those myself, but the arid rock that also supports grasses. I had a nice time exploring around there for a little. And look, hey, while we were there, a full-size 50-person coach parked up, disgorged all of its people off who were sort of taking pictures, and I swear they were back on that thing in under 10 minutes and out of there. So look, we're hardly the worst offenders if you want to lay the charge that we're not seeing the Bardenas properly. Anyway, off we went. We were making quite a lot of ground north and west on this first day. I wonder that anyone who knows this part of Spain might be a little puzzled at our movements. It's a bit like someone coming to England like, London was great, and then we drove straight to Newcastle. It's like, wait, what? Why are you doing it like that? Part of it was the fossilised remains of the previous trip plans where I'd anticipated we'd have longer and be making more progress north gradually. But all of that said, it was proving to be a great road trip for views and vibes. And with a mixture of sunshine and dramatic clouds, the landscape was a real privilege to see. Well, we were almost at our stop for the night. We got into Burgos just after the sun went down. I'd pegged Burgos as not a huge city, but there was a lot going on here in the centre. Seemed like everyone was out on the streets, children playing, bars absolutely rammed. We'd booked a hostel right by the cathedral. Now, I don't want this explainer to take as long as our check-in did. Basically, they put us in the wrong room. I don't mind larger dorms when I'm travelling solo. When you've got a group, it's nice to be able to laugh and josh around without being glared at. And the room of 10 they ended up putting us in was otherwise filled with grumpy men over 60 who were unaccountably in bed before 9 p.m. We tried to talk to the reception. The guy, bless him, was full of apologies. We were trying to sort this out as a youth orchestra had just arrived, like cello cases and all. We'd booked a room of 4. Someone there had changed it on the system. It's not clear who. It just couldn't be fixed. The hostel was full of youth orchestras and the like. At least we did have a bed for the night. Just, not super. After about an hour of trying to sort this out to no avail, we eventually got to go out for food. There was sort of universal assent that we really need to have burgers in Burgos. So for burgers we went. The waiting staff judiciously ignored the 5 of us as we just stood in the entrance for about 10 minutes. I didn't hate this, but I was getting over being ill right before this trip, and my appetite had taken quite a hit, so this modest portion did in fact overface me. But again, can't complain. We'd made it, we'd covered the distance, had beds for the night, and we found a place that would seat us. It was a pretty noisy night. The hostel fronts onto the street and the bars were packed. At one point, someone somewhere had an actual samba whistle, really to get into the party. But, I guess that's the trade-off for being so central. Well, woke up a bit later than I anticipated. In stark contrast to the previous evening, the square was deafeningly silent. This was 8:30, no movement at all. I got lucky there was one of the few coffee spots open just on an inconspicuous corner, but I'm really puzzled just how pervasive Lavazza is here in Spain. It's relentless. It was following me around like Mike Myers. It was at the airport. It's all we could get hold of in Reus when we looked. On Sunday morning, that's all that seemed to be on offer. Anyway, gradually, as teammates surfaced, we coalesced by another cafe that wasn't as packed by the Cathedral Square. I was getting a few shots with the sort of muted colours of a cloudy morning, but with the intention to come back. By the way, it seems like I'm putting a bit of a stank on it every time I say Burgos. This became a bit of a meme of the trip. So, very first thing off the plane in Reus, while the car hire guy was like shuttling us to the office, I don't know why they couldn't have just brought the car to the airport like everyone else, but whatever. So he's asking us about ourselves and like, oh yeah, so where are you staying tonight? And I said, oh yeah, Burgos. He looked puzzled. Burgos? Yeah, Burgos. Again, this is not a tiny place. I'd say it's about analogous to like Winchester in the UK. You know, a city that's not huge, but also pretty significant, well known. So we sort of showed him it on our phones, written down. He instantly lit up like, oh, Burgos. Look, okay, like, I know my Spanish is pitiful, and I already feel bad about it, but you don't need to hang us out to dry quite that much. Are you telling me you couldn't infer Burgos from Burgos? Like they're so mutually unintelligible. Like, it's not like the possibly apocryphal story of the two Aussie guys getting in a cab and asking you to go to Luga Baruga, please, mate. Anyway, for the rest of the trip, it was physically impossible to say Burgos without sounding like you were referencing something in the Black Sea. Okay, well, getting out of town, it was a bit cloudy. The landscape is a real mix. You know, every 10 minutes it feels very different. Stopped off at this petrol station, and after maybe about 50 minutes, a quick stop here. This is Aguirre de Campo. It's a smallish town with an above-average castle and a very pretty church with a few Romanesque details. It was a quick stop as much longer, and we'd have fallen foul of the Spanish heritage site opening times. You know, I know there is zero point me even saying this, but the habit of Spanish historical sites opening at maybe 10 or 11 in the morning and then closing at 2, just for the rest of the day. You know, affording you such a narrow window in terms of your planning, they're almost forcing you to make them the only major ticketed thing you do in a day because, oh, sorry, the time it took you to drive here, it's 1:35 and we close at 2, so sucks to be you. You can tell this is something that has absolutely happened to us before. Oh, and not opening on Monday or Tuesday, by the way. You know, heavens forfend. So, for example, because we didn't get away quite quick enough on the Saturday to catch this, the Fortaleza de Vilars, just about an hour out of Tarragona, well, that was it. I know you've only just landed and you're here for 4 days, but already that is now entirely closed off to you because you're flying back on Tuesday. Now, look, heritage sites are often run on very narrow margins, particularly in the UK, and I get that staffing these like 9 to 5, 365 is often not possible. But opening for like barely 3 hours, like, why even bother opening at all if you're going to be like that? It's so self-defeating. Anyway, look, I had quite high hopes for this next one. These are the Roman remains of, I want to say Julio Briga, probably a soft J there, I don't know. They have the mountain backdrops to die for, and there's these modest foundations of several structures scattered all over a fairly large area, including this house, which they've recreated as a small museum. But, okay, what exactly is going on here is not abundantly clear. It turns out you can only go around by tour. So this strange kind of vignette played out. There was about 15 of us, you know, various ages and groups, and a printed sheet of A4 sellotaped outside indicated the next tour was at 1:20. So, at about 1:20, a few of us opened the door and we all waited obediently by the ticket desk. You could hear some conversations taking place somewhere inside and waited some more, and then after about 20 minutes, a staffer came out and in Spanish appeared to say, like, the hell are you all doing here? Well, I don't know. Guy who has a piece of paper outside with the time 1:20 printed on it. You tell me. Just take a wild guess. Why do you think we're here? Go on. So a rather tense standoff in Spanish occurred, at which point, well, all the Spanish speakers kind of made an exasperated moan in unison and all left. I obviously had not quite picked up exactly what's going on. I did inquire is there a tour? Can I just pay to go in and look around? But no. It was very unclear if there was going to be a tour at all, or if so, when, but we certainly weren't allowed in without one. I mean, you don't think you're going to be able to navigate a 15 by 15 metre square unaided, so no dice. We did have a chance to see this Visigothic church from the 600s, built within what was the Roman Forum, but again, not open without some sort of tour at another time. God, you don't think we're being just a bit precious about all these? Ugh. Anyway, a bit more of a look at the ruins, and then we were on our way. Just occasionally, if I have a slightly sarcastic inflection about a few things, I get people in the comments like, oh, why'd you hate Spain so much? It's like, I don't. This is great. Is it not obvious from all the beautiful things I'm showing you that this is great? So yes, for any downsides or any small things I'm making a note of, this was turning into an absolutely fantastic time. Was dozing a little, so didn't get a lot of footage for the next section skirting the... Is this a lake or a reservoir? It's one of those. It feels tedious listing off the various equivalent British places that the landscape resembled at different times of the day. At one point, it's kind of like a fair analogue for Cumbria, but then at other times it looked like it would be distinct at home in Yorkshire or similar. This area was giving me distinct Peak District vibes. Ultimately, I think we can just agree that the Cantabrian landscape is really special. And not to repeat myself here, but really not what people picture Spain to look like. The next stop, this is also a pretty unique one, the town of Puente. Part of the town is perched on this, I want to say, karst archway carved by the Naylor River. This was actually a long overdue chance to get food, and we were very fortunate with a nice place to sit down. You notice by now that we're normally eating kind of unremarkably, so to actually find a spot doing local dishes inexpensively, that felt like too good an opportunity to miss. And the lady could not have been sweeter. Instantly seeing our lack of Spanish, she talked us through what they were serving and was so friendly. I got this, which was the boar in a stew with potato. It was lovely. Got time with an espresso that wasn't Lavazza. Wasn't going to change any life, but it was okay. We went under the arch and walked around to check out the church at the top of the town. It has this very interesting tympanum. Just loving all of this. Well, on to the next, one place which was possible precisely because it was free to go and it didn't slam shut at 2 p.m. And it is quite the showstopper, the Rio Seco Abbey. We have devoted a lot of time to chasing ruined monastic sites around the UK. A certain noteworthy monarch made sure there'd be plenty of those to see across the UK and Ireland, and in fact, that's coming early next year. But in the meantime, this platform is not exactly dealing with us equitably, let's say, dribbling our videos out to about 2% of our actual subscriber count, turning off the taps only to flood the area with sewage, much like Thames water. So we massively appreciate a subscribe, but to be honest, you'll probably have to hit the bell. Otherwise, like a controlling Victorian stepmother intercepting all your correspondence, you'll probably just never hear from us again. Right, so ruined abbeys. It's a treat to catch them anywhere, but this one was particularly spectacular, especially its cloisters. So yeah, had a great time exploring that. From there, I was actually this trip having a first crack at driving on the right. I'd had my license for just over a year, but this was among the first opportunities I'd had to actually have a crack at this. Jordan had taken the lead on driving, and even though he'd not driven on the right before either, he was just ducked to water and was doing amazingly. So my short spells behind the wheel, at which time my hands were getting embarrassingly sweaty, barely made a dent, but still, it was a small triumph for me, having had friends or Jen to drive us around for years. At a short distance away, we found ourselves in a beautiful valley with the sun out and the hermitage of sadly not open. But sure, very lovely Romanesque detail all round. This is why we take aerial footage. About an hour south back to Burgos, and with very enjoyable scenery in all directions. So the classic thing, I'm recording thinking like, this will be just a nice quick episode. It never is a nice quick episode. Editing together something over 30 minutes takes ages, so we're actually going to split this into a part 2. Of course, this is going to just sound like sequel bait, but the most dramatic part of our trip has still not occurred yet, so definitely tune in for more of this from North Spain next time. So I am always at risk of forgetting about the game. Let's just quickly go over the results from last time. We were looking at amphitheatres. So the first one is Pula in Croatia. This does often get confused with the Flavian Amphitheatre in Rome, but if you put them side by side, you can see they're very visually different. Number 2, this is Durs from Albania. Kind of looking a bit worse for wear, but there it is. Number 3, doubting most people have come across this. This was in Gênes in France. This is Gênes Val de Loire. Obviously, mostly just turf now, but you can see some of the masonry there. We didn't get to go in, hence it's just aerial footage. Number 4, this was the amphitheatre at Merida, and you can see the much more famous theatre just next door. And number 5, it is, of course, Chester. So this week I was wondering what to do, and we caught some really nice Romanesque churches while we were in North Spain. There's so much more I had on the list that I was hoping to catch, but this was a pretty good start. So I figured we'd just go with about 5 Romanesque churches from various places around Europe. Number 1, this was back from a very rainy but very enjoyable weekend we had in January. Number 2, this one might be a little bit harder, but if your first impulse is that doesn't look like the UK, well, you are correct. Number 3, I caught this just recently. Sadly, even though there was someone there to unlock the door itself was broken, so I didn't get to see the inside of the church, but this entrance portal is spectacular enough as it is. Number 4, and Romanesque does of course change as you get around Europe, so this might overlap into some other categories, but still, there it is. And one more, number 5, so if you can get any or all of these, answers in the comments. If you've enjoyed the music in the background, it's ours. We make all the music for these episodes, and you can catch it all on bandcamp.com. If you want to support the channel by flicking us a few quid, that's the place to do it. We're also working to something of a backlog. You might have gathered that this is from last year. So if you want to see what we're doing on more of a week-by-week basis, follow us on Blue Sky. And yes, there's loads more to see in the Spain playlist. And if you could hit the bell as well as the subscribe so you actually have a chance of seeing what we're up to, we'll catch you very soon.